on shuffle. I put sweet and crunch and different things in my food. I drive a different way to work. I said, I bring change and surprise into my life in different ways than I used to. So that was it. Yeah, I know, right? Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But I thought that was interesting, and I was at the point where I was sort of when I was doing the magazines, I loved what I was doing and I felt like I did a good job. And it really did that, and wanting to write drove me to getting my MA in English. But I realized that I was at the computer all day, and I'm more of a people person, and I just found that it was really tough to do, for my personality. And there was so much that just had no variety, that it was a hard thing. And as she was talking to me, she mentioned to me, when I talked about what I did with the magazines, she mentioned to me, she said, your face just fell when you started talking about the magazines. You need to get out of that. But it wasn't until later that I was able to. But mm-hmm. Did it? In a good way? Oh, good. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it won't. It won't. Yeah, yeah. Part of that is why I put the lines going up. I'm an ENTP. Um, yeah, and I think it's I was right on the border between thinking and feeling, and I think that was what threw her. I'm not sure what threw her, but and then I met with her. We had coffee in Minneapolis a couple of years ago, because after I did my MA, I'm more introverted now than I was, and I wanted to know, like, if I took Myers-Briggs test now, would it show up? How would it show? And she said it doesn't change my the E part, but you can be more balanced, and yeah, and people do change like that. But doing all that studying just made me much more of an introvert. Well, wait till I put the other one on. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I want it to look like the form stays together. In fact, you probably saw me pushing on that to get it to do that. Sometimes I do this to perk those up a little bit. And she said that often people, as they age, get they round off a little more, so they have a little more of both. Uh, yeah, so E is extrovert, N is intuitive. That, pardon? Yeah, and P is perceptive, as opposed, and which one is uh, as opposed to being judgmental, right? Is feeling is the opposite of perceptive. One of them is judging, and I don't have that. Yeah, anyway, I'm an ENTP, and I haven't retaken it since then. Her name is Jean Kummerow, Kummerow, and I don't know who her co-author was. I have it on the book, but and I found it really interesting. She chose me. She said she chose me to. She must have found my background interesting or something, but it's a great program. They take you in the mountains for a week, and you do all of these team building things. And then they actually break you down into groups of 6, and you're with that group, that cohort, while you're there. And then they videotape you in a group setting where they have given you a community problem, and then you're supposed to work it out, and they're videotaping you in the group. And one of the people in my group, no, he wasn't in my group. Then later we'd go and they showed us the videotape so we could see how we interacted with the group. And on the last day, this man who is an engineer for the city of Sheridan, they did this, any feedback, any comments, and he stood up and he said, I watched myself on videotape. And he said, if ever in this room, if ever anybody in this room sees me behave like that again in a group, bust me. He was so changed by this whole process. Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah. It was pretty incredible. We all had our mouths open because he'd had a tendency to dominate the group, whenever we would be in a group with him, he would tend to just dominate, and nobody else could get a word in edgewise. It's a Minnesota program called, from the Blandin Foundation, which is up in northern Minnesota. And Sheridan is the only place they've ever done it outside of Minnesota. So we're really fortunate. And they've done 5 or 6 classes now. And it's aimed toward leadership, so that they want these people to be on boards and in significant positions in the community. So whenever anybody says to me, we need a board member, I always say, go to that list of graduates from that group because it's so good. I had some, when I spun this around, I could see air. So I just stuck a couple little things in there. I did it here too. I put one on the end. Does it? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because I don't like the light from the inside distracting from the rest of it. Even though Leonard Cohen says, what is it he says? There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Yeah. Well, Yeah, he's asking about my path to the writing. Um, in 2016 was when I fell down the stairs, and I couldn't work for 3 or 4 months. I was that bad. And so I couldn't, it was just my daughter and I doing this, and we couldn't financially afford to publish. You know, our income dropped on the magazines. And so I was attempting to sell it. So it wasn't really a hiatus. So I sold it. That happened in March of 2016. And so I sold it in March of 2017. And then in May of that year, I enrolled in the MA program at the University of Wyoming. I had wanted to do it. It's a distance learning program. And I wanted to get my MA because I wanted to write more. And I wanted to know that I was doing it with the knowledge and the credentials. And it was more theory-based than, it wasn't a creative writing program. The creative writing program at the University of Wyoming is actually in the art department, which is an interesting, what happened was that the English department decided to cut the creative writing program, so the art department said, we'll take it. Yeah, it was a really good thing to happen. So it was a 3-year program. We spent 1 week every summer down in Laramie at an in-person class. And then every semester, we were on Zoom for 3.5 hours a week. So it was just like being in the classroom. And it was a cohort, so we all got to know each other pretty well. It was really nice. And it brought me to my knees many times because I was one of 2 of us who, see, I really like when that happens, those little round things. It kind of becomes like ribbon when that happens. There were only 2 of us who didn't have undergraduate degrees in English. So if I look at some artwork, I might be able to say influenced by so-and-so or influenced by so-and-so. They could say, that's out of Shakespeare, that's out of this. I couldn't do that. I just didn't have that knowledge. So it was hard, but it was really good. Most of the professors there are 19th century specialists and excellent faculty. So I learned so much. And my thesis was on, my topic was a comparative analysis of contemporary fine art criticism and contemporary ceramics criticism. So I did spreadsheets on the qualities that were in the writing in both. And it ended up that I found out that they really aren't much different, but there's just a lot more of the writing in the fine arts than there is in ceramics. So my thesis defense had to be online, on Zoom, because we couldn't go down in person. It was right after COVID started. And so because of that, I invited people from all over the world who I knew were interested in critical discourse. And I had about 25 or 30 people who came. Then I started getting emails from them saying, let's keep this conversation going. And so we decided to meet once a month, and which we still do. That'll be 2 years ago in May that we started. And every month I get a guest speaker, and most of them in your Commonwealth. But then to make it easier to do, and this is how committed these people are to it, they've given me money, so we've been paying $100 for them to do a 20-minute presentation, and then we just discuss. I mean, they stay for the whole hour, but then we just discuss. So we'll do this studio visit with her. And I've told her she can either pre-record it, and then she can talk over it when we meet, or she can do the walkthrough live if she wants to. And so we're going to do that and try that. So I want to try to do studio visits probably every other month. This will be the first artist we've done. The others have been writers who have talked about their paths in writing, and critics. But so it'll be interesting to see how this works. I'm hoping that I can do every other month as a walkthrough, a studio walkthrough, and then have people really focus on the work and how they would write about it, on the qualities of the work, etc. I think this sticks out more than this does over here as part of it. I'm going to push that in. They're sagging a little, aren't they? The weight is. This side is going in? Yeah. Yeah. It's leaning over that way, isn't it? Because it is damp. Sometimes I let them set up. It just depends on what my schedule is, Yeah, it's still doing that. I'll have to try to fix that one. Is it better? But now, if I were at home, I would probably quit on this and because of that. Sure. Oh, okay. It's almost 1, isn't it? Yeah, let's do that. I've lost track of time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love working in learning. Yeah. And I always have found it pretty easy to be a big fish in a little pond. And there was a point before I went to grad school, or before I went back to school for my BFA, where I thought, I need to focus, because this is a little academic, but I'm really interested in learning curves. And there are a lot of activities. Throwing on the wheel is one thing. Playing golf is another. Skiing, where, the piece is in there, so where it's hard at the beginning, and then you kind of get it, and the strokes that you get from accomplishing, then you feel that. And then you level off. Your skill level levels off. And then the next plateau is harder to get to. So it's easier to start a new thing and be good at it quickly, and then you get that same feedback, that same sense of, yeah. And I just decided I was tired of that. I mean, I used to teach leaded glass before I had my degree. I just always have drawn and done a lot of stuff like that. But then when I was going to go back to school, I thought, and when I touched ceramics, touched clay, I thought, okay, I know I'm a smart I mean, the average IQ of Americans is 99. I know I'm smarter than a lot of people in America. And a lot of people are achieving a lot more than I'm achieving. So I need to just focus and focus on one thing. And I don't really care about I'd love to just have affirmation of my peers, not necessarily the general community, you know. So that was what made me get into ceramics. And, you know, I loved the material as soon as I touched it, but it was just that I need to just stick with this. I need to focus and not be so all over the place. So now that I'm retired, I feel like I can go back and do some of those things and still keep this up. Yeah. You what? Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah. But then, you know, it's hard to get really good at something.